Hey, Cam.
What's up, Mitch?
Hey, we got a lot to talk about this week.
Do we ever?
So, ATP Recorder, the Accidental Tech Podcast, for those of you who don't listen to it, recorded an episode this last week. Did you listen to that, by the way?
No, I have moved on from ATP. I for reasons that we don't need to get into right now.
Their episode was 3 hours and 15 minutes this last week.
Holy cow.
So as long as we don't do more than that, we're okay. So
Yeah, no,
we
I
figured
have a
we.
house. I have a house to go move into today. So
All right, let's not do a 3 hour episode then.
yeah.
All right, so let's get into it. We talked a little bit about. Did we talk about AirPods on the show last week, or was it offline? I forget.
Oh, I think that makes us both bad podcasters. I don't remember.
I think we talked about that offline, but we were discussing AirPods, and I have some AirPods Pro. That's right. It was after the show because I dropped them out of my pocket and we talked about them. So it was
Yes,
after
there we
the
go.
show. So you had told me that you had some of the older AirPods that were kind of getting old and weren't working so well. So I got a text message early this last week of your shipping notification that they were on the way. So did you get them on Thursday?
I did. They arrived on Thursday, and so I've been using them for 2 days.
All right. What do you think?
They are very different than I have the Gen 1 AirPods. Um, so no wireless charging. I've had them for probably, I don't know, 3 years, something like that. Um, and it's not just the silicon tips that are different, or silicone tips, sorry. Um,
Whichever.
yeah,
I've
however
been
you want
making
to.
that mistake all week. So
It's I love I my normal headphones are Shure in-ear monitor headphones. So I'm totally used to the sealed, in-ear feel that, blocks the sound out. Um, so that doesn't bother me at all. The noise cancellation, though, I've never had noise canceling headphones before. That is trippy.
I would agree. And years ago, I'd bought some Bose noise canceling headphones. They worked half as good as the AirPods Pro. The AirPods Pro just, I don't know what it is, but they really nailed it. And I don't know if you realize there's actually microphones inside and outside.
Yeah,
So they're able to measure how your inner ear canal, what sounds you're hearing, and so that noise cancellation adapts to all of that, and it's wild. It does such a good job.
yeah. It's like I was sitting in like the main hallway of my church, waiting for FedEx to come pick up a package, and there's a pretty loud air conditioner noise, and I turned the noise canceling on, and I forgot that I had the noise canceling on, and I didn't hear it. And then the FedEx person showed up, and I took my AirPod out, and the noise cancellation obviously stopped. And I was like, "Holy cow! There's been a fan on this entire time, and I had no idea."
Yep. And probably the biggest experience I've had with it is that my wife will grab the vacuum cleaner and start vacuuming, and if I connect my AirPods to the Apple TV, which I can do relatively easily as I'm
Mm-hmm.
watching something, and turn on that cancellation, I don't even know she's vacuuming hardly unless she's in the room with me. So it's
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
I also really like transparency mode.
I actually use them more in transparency mode than I do in active noise cancellation.
Yeah, it it's bizarre because like you can tell it's miking the external noise and piping it in. But when everything's off, you just have like that silicone seal, and so it's not noise canceling, but everything's pretty muted.
Hmm.
And that transparency mode is like you're like hyper listening to everything around you. It's like I feel like a spy. I'm like, ooh, I have headphones in, but I can hear everything outside of me really, really well. Go on, tell me all of your secrets, person next to me at the coffee shop.
Yeah, right. It's the perfect poker headphones.
Now, there are a few things I do not like about them, though.
All right.
Uh, I do not like the physical button that you have to press for play pause, or you hold down for transparency mode or noise cancellation. That little like high pitched bink noise that it
Hmm.
makes the hair on my arms stand up. I hate that noise, and it's right in your ear.
And I have not had that experience. So,
You don't yours don't make the noise.
I'm sure they make the noise. It doesn't just give you a little click.
Yeah, but the noise the click makes is terrible.
Hmm. Okay. I guess it just doesn't bother me then.
And I also don't like the fact that I actually have to physically click a button on a stem that's like half an inch long.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was one of the people that didn't mind the double tap on the old AirPods for Siri and for play pause, because it was just it's a gross motor skill, right? Just bonk bonk. Hey Siri, do this for me. Bonk bonk. Play pause. Now I have to like very carefully place my fingers on this tiny little stem next to my ear, find the button, and actually push it or hold it. Not a fan.
Yeah, and I think the difference between you and me on this one is I think I've been using them long enough that I've really gotten used to that. I can definitely see where the tapping on the ear is a little bit easier or more convenient, but I guess I just doesn't bother me that much.
For me, it was like if I'm doing the dishes or mowing the lawn or working in the yard or doing stuff where my hands are either wet or dirty or gross, I could literally just use the back of my hand and double tap and talk to whoever's calling me, or if my daughter needs something, or someone shows up, I don't have to then take my dirty, grimy, gross, wet hands and touch my very expensive technology with them. I can just use the back of my hand to do it, or like the nose tap on the watch,
Hmm.
like that sort of stuff. But with this, I don't really have that choice, right? So there are pros and cons. I think they sound really good.
I think they sound much better.
So I'm happy with the purchase, because like you said, my old AirPods were starting to the microphone was really starting to not work very well. Um, so happy with the purchase, but definitely not perfect.
Yeah. Have you gotten a text message while you've had them in yet?
One, and I didn't know what was happening.
The first couple times that happens, it shocks you a little bit.
And the text message I actually believe was from you. So well done, sir.
Hmm. Oh, very good.
Yeah, like the notification noise it makes. I'd never heard that notification noise before because I'd never received a text message on my AirPods Pro. And I was like mid podcast and I was like, oh, this is a new sting on this show. I'm like, oh, no, wait, my podcast is over. I'm being talked to by Siri now. It was very, what's the word, off putting because I had no reference point for what was happening.
Yeah, and I think there was the other night you and I were having a conversation while I was driving home from work. And yes, whether it's legal or not, I do wear my AirPods in the car in transparency mode. But you had text me, and I was the whole conversation we had. I pretty much was dictating to you through the AirPods Pro.
Yeah, because when I received it, it said sent with Siri. It has like little
Oh,
like
did it?
yeah,
Hmm.
which I think they do so that like if some of the words are wrong, they're not like, man, Mitch must be, glug 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 tonight.
Yeah, has he been drinking? Right. So
So
overall, you give them two thumbs up, or
yeah, overall, I think I will get used to the button clicks, but I would have preferred they keep the old interactions, but I don't know how they would have done that with the noise cancellation, the long press and hold. So I get why they did what they did. I do like the physical appearance of the shorter stems, especially like with my beard, because sometimes I'd be talking to my mom or my dad, they're like, "Are you ruffling a bag of potato chips next to your phone?" And it was because the longer stems were rubbing up against my facial hair. So that's no longer a problem. But yeah, two thumbs up for sure. Would recommend them with the obvious detractors that I've mentioned. So
and I
choose
think I think
wisely.
it might be interesting to revisit this in a month or two and see how you're doing with them and if any of those opinions have changed. So I do think that they take a little getting used to.
For sure.
Cool. Well, our national nightmare is over, man. SodaStream is back in stock.
Okay, good. I was like, there are so many places I can take that comment, Mitch, but I don't really know if we want to go there on the show. So
Right,
SodaStream,
right.
okay, I'm
Yes,
happy. Tell me more. Tell me more.
my wife was actually able to order new SodaStream cartridges this last week on the SodaStream website, and the old ones are sitting all boxed up and ready to ship back to them right now. So, yeah, I had my first SodaStream water last night. I got to bubble my own water when I got home from work last night, and it was very nice. So.
Did you play Bobby Roode's entrance music
I
before?
really, I really wanted to. I hadn't thought of it, but that would have been perfect.
So that's how you felt inside was glorious, I'm
Oh,
assuming.
absolutely. Glorious. I'll never do that again, I promise.
I'm glad it was you and not me.
But the other thing is, you brought up LaCroix last week.
Indeed.
Yep, and you're a big fan of LaCroix.
I do enjoy LaCroix, yes. I think it's refreshing.
Well, on your recommendation, I slummed it this last week and got a couple of cases of LaCroix, and I didn't hate it. Wasn't bad.
Hey, progress. What flavors did you go with?
I I got orange. We were at Aldi, so I think they had like four flavors available, so it wasn't a huge assortment. But the orange was good. And then I thought I'm gonna get a risky one, and I got the coconut.
Ooh,
So
what did you think?
the coconut wasn't bad. Uh,
I've tried
it's
it
an
twice, and I was expecting terrible things, and I thought, oh, this is actually rather good.
it, I kind of expected to have the first sip and hate it, which is why did I buy it? But uh, but I thought, we'll get a risky one and see how they do. And I didn't dislike it at all. It was actually not bad.
Well, I'll count that as a
Which is
win.
which is high praise, I'm sure. But
Indeed.
but anyway, that's enough about carbonated water. So we talked about the SSDs and the Mac and a few different things like that. You're going to do a little bit of research and do
Yes,
some
I did
follow
some
up with me
homework.
today.
Indeed. So you are correct that Mac SSDs are soldered to the board just like the RAM is, which means, guess what, consumers? We can't do anything with it. It's not user replaceable. But that doesn't dictate with the type of SSD, be it NVMe or things like that. So I found a really helpful article at beatstech.com from 2017, but it went through the entire history of Mac SSDs for like a really really long time, but it hasn't been updated since 2017, so it has none of the newer Macs from the last 3 years. But essentially, all of the late 2016 to mid 2017 MacBook Pros, when the article was written, have SSDs that support the NVMe protocol, which is non-volatile memory. I forget what the E stands for. And the devices that include these drives all support PCIe 3.0 NVMe connections. So the fact that the SSDs are soldered to the board doesn't dictate the type of connection that Apple can or chooses to use. It just dictates whether or not I can swap it out. And that's not news, right? We've all known that Macs have become more or less and less and less and less customizable post purchase. You have to do all of those configurations up front, which is Apple's way of making you pay more money to future proof your computer. Which, smart business decision, but kind of not great user experience.
Would you call it user hostile?
Uh, I mean, I think putting spinning disks in computers still is user hostile. I don't think charging more for more storage is user hostile, but yeah, it's like I get Apple, they're control freaks. That's why when we talk later about the move to ARM, like they want to control the full stack. They want the software, they want the hardware, they want everything in between. They want to control all the interactions. That's why they have their own retail stores. Like they want to control 100% of your use and interaction with any of their products or services. So
Which I think benefits us in a lot of ways.
yeah, yeah, we'll see some of those benefits when we talk about some of the updates from WWDC. But again, that's why there is the custom PC culture. It's the people that want their own control and they want their ability to customize and to upgrade and to not be controlled by or have their experience controlled by another company. They want to do it themselves, and that's why you're always going to have those two different views, but also some of the people in between that hop back and forth. So yeah, it's definitely a control thing.
So last week or 2 weeks ago, when I was editing the show, um, I kept hearing something, and I'm thinking to myself, "Did I get this wrong? Did I were we did I thought we had settled on a name for this podcast, and it
Yeah.
keeps using a different name. So I went back to our conversation in the text messages when we were talking about what we wanted to name the show. And I'm like, no, I was right. It was Inner Dialogue.
Uh-huh. Yeah. History is on your side.
Somebody on the podcast, not me, kept calling it internal dialogue, which I probably wouldn't have greenlighted that because there's another podcast by that name. But Inner Dialogue, we can own. So so that's your public shaming. So
Yeah, and well deserved. It's well deserved.
so if there's any questions about that on last week's episode, yeah, that was just a miss.
Just me being flat out wrong. That's what it was. The
Yeah.
show is Inner Dialogue, and I will forever second guess that from now on because of my mistakes in the first episode.
So what I think is hilarious about that is I was thinking, gosh, is there some way that I could edit this to make it sound like inner dialogue instead of internal dialogue? And when it came down to it, it would have been that terrible edit where, yeah, on the show today we're going to be talking about this and inner dialogue. It would have been totally different.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
anyway,
that's funny, but yeah, no,
but
that's definitely
I left it in the show, and now I can harass you about it. And
indeed, yes,
there we are.
it will live forever.
So one last piece of follow up. I'll let you off the hook on that one. We talked a lot about carrot weather last week, and after the show, I got a text message from you showing that you had downloaded carrot weather. So how was your experience with carrot weather over the last couple of weeks?
It makes me laugh multiple times a day, which
It is funny.
now I get why people like it so much. Uh, it's funny. And I also like the secret location search. Like, I have no idea why that's in a weather app. I have no idea.
It's totally stupid, but it's
Right.
entertaining at the same
Every
time.
time I get the notification, I'm like, okay, like I had to find Chernobyl last night. I didn't know Chernobyl was in Ukraine. I thought it was in Russia.
Yeah.
Shows you what I know.
Yeah. So what I thought always thought was funny was there was a secret location that was not it was discoverable another way, but they had Mordor in there. I don't know if you've seen that one yet.
I have not gotten to that one yet.
Yeah, but yeah, Mordor is just hot all the time. It never changes. The forecast never changes for Mordor. So,
That's
but
funny. But yeah,
that
so
was pretty funny.
overall, I like it. I'm still not used to the user interface where you can like scroll right to left to like go into the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I used Dark Sky for years, so that in my brain is how a weather app should look and function, which is not correct, right? That's just what I'm used to. So it has taken some getting used to. But like I said, the weather app that makes me laugh, like yes, please, why not? That's great.
And to be quite honest with you, when I'm looking at Carrot Weather, I find it one of the best weather apps overall that I've downloaded as well. I've always had an issue with the way different apps do the radar. I like to have a crap ton of information on the radar. I love having storm tracking on there. I love having just because when this time of year when we're getting a lot of storms coming through our area, it is really nice to be able to see, hey, this one's coming this way and how the wind currents are affecting that and all that kind of stuff. And that's all in their weather app, where you can download one that's just for radar and not get nearly that many features. So the fact that, they're funny and it's entertaining, but it's a really well-made weather app.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. So thank you for the recommendation, sir. It is now on my home screen.
Yeah, I pretty much have deleted everything else. I was getting increasingly frustrated with the Weather Channel app. The fact that at one point I could pay to get rid of ads, which I did, and then they updated it like a year later, and they're like, "Oh wait, there's no paid version anymore, so you're stuck with ads." And it's like, I don't want ads in my weather app.
Said it's only because you and five other people paid. They realized they could make more money on the ads.
Man, it ticked me off so much. And then they came out with the Storm Track app. I forget, I think that was the name of it or something like that. And so I downloaded that because the radar was good and rich and had a lot of the features that I wanted, but the forecasting was kind of, you could get to it, but you had to tap through a few different things. So it wasn't super convenient to get to that. But then they added ads to that, and I'm just like, I'm done with ads. I just give me an ability to pay you $3 to $5 or even a subscription fee or whatever. I'll pay it to get rid of those stupid ads if it's a good weather app. I'm paying for Carrot. I'm a tier 2 subscriber on Carrot because I love the features that it gives me. I love the customizability of the watch face, the complications for the watch face and stuff like that. It's just good.
Yeah.
It's a well done app. So I'm willing to throw money at somebody if they're doing good work. So all right. Well, let's get into our first topic of the show. We're going to be talking about WWDC later, but I thought, since we are a faith-based podcast, we do want to bring in a little bit of Bible every so often to talk about some stuff. I thought it would be appropriate for us to talk about coveting a little bit today. Because quite honestly, we're all sinners. We sin. And just because we're saved, we've been justified, doesn't mean that we don't deal with sins in our life every day. And coveting, I know, is one of my issues. I don't know if you have the same issue, Cam, but
I like things. I like having things. I like
yeah,
seeing nice things. Going, ooh, I want that.
yeah, and I love going on the Amazon app and going, "Ooh, that's cool. Ooh, that's cool. I want that. Add that to the wish list. Add that to wish. I got wish lists like you wouldn't believe on Amazon." But I thought a good reminder before we get into talking about the WWDC announcements and stuff like that is just to cover coveting. And in Luke chapter 12, we'll start in verse 13, but the crux of it is in 15. It says, someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the family inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who appointed me a judge or arbiter over you?" And then he said to them, "Beware and be on your guard against every form of greed, for not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions."
Well, yeah, I like where he says, your life doesn't consist of the abundance that you have, right? Like there's a sign at my local Jimmy John's that says the gap between more and enough never closes, which is the non-biblical version of what Jesus just said, right? The
Right.
the stuff that we collect, we don't get to take with us, right? Like, and so to Jesus's point, what matters is our relationship with God and our rightness with God. And that is more valuable, that has more abundance, that has more meaning, that has more purpose than anything we could collect, be it Apple hardware, fancy cars, fancy titles, whatever, the thing is. And it's a good reminder. So I'm glad that you added this to show notes because we can temper our discussion about what's to come through this. And so I'm quite happy that you brought this up.
And I think that it's important to note that if you're feeling convicted about this, as I feel convicted about this, that's okay. That's how God works with us. That's how He grows us and makes us better people. Because there's so little we can do to make ourselves better. It really depends on how God works with us and teaches us. So a little conviction is okay. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're like, man, I really got to straighten that out, that's all right. Learn from that. That's good. All right. Anyway, moving on. WWDC. So where did you want to start on this? I know I've got the Foundation series as kind of a first quick note in here because I was drooling over the trailer.
Yes,
Uh,
tell me about your drooling, Mitch. I'm very interested.
so I sent you a text message too that says I'm drooling right now. But I love sci-fi. Science fiction is my jam. I almost don't watch anything else. Star Wars, as we talked about last week.
Would you say it's your space jam?
It's my Space Jam. That's terrible. Um, but oh, good grief! How
I'm
did I know
sorry.
Michael Jordan was going to come up in our conversation today? Anyway, so the Foundation series, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Isaac Asimov wrote a series of books that is considered to be one of the pinnacle experiences and probably one of the most defining experiences when it comes to sci-fi fiction in the last so many years, or from the conception of sci-fi in general. It's going to be really interesting to see how they adapt Foundation, because Foundation moves kind of slow and is not a big budget, war thing, like you might see in Star Wars or some of the other ones. It is a very cerebral series of books, which makes it really good. And I was telling Cam before we got on the air that I've this is a series that I've started about 3 times. So, and I say started because it's not reading it isn't the pacing is a little off for me. But I downloaded the audiobook for the first Foundation book, and we're going to read it that way. So I'd love to get prepared for this series. So, Cam, any thoughts?
I mean, I thought it looked awesome. Uh, Again, visually, like just the level of production that TV shows have now, or can have, is just.
Yeah.
I am happy that I get to watch shows with that level of production value. I know nothing about the books, and I'm debating whether or not I want to read them or if I just want the show to be how I learn the story. Because fiction, I don't know, like I've read Lord of the Rings. Obviously, I read the Harry Potter books when I was younger. I've read all the Game of Thrones books up to this point. But like other than that sort of stuff, fiction kind of bores me for the most part. And so I'm tempted to read them because it's been a long time since I've read fiction. Uh, but it seems like a really large commitment, and I may just wait till the show. But either way, I'm excited about it, and I'm excited for a new story and a new universe, and to see what it holds for us. And I'm thinking perhaps this is the show that Apple is hoping will get people to sign up for TV Plus. Like this is going to be their Game of Thrones, essentially, is what my guess is.
And I think it has the potential to be that. The just looking at the trailer, the book series spans 1,000 years
Oh gosh,
of time. So for them to be able to move around, I mean, it's going to be really interesting. Like I said, how they do this, because they obviously have um, a really grand view of how they want to present Foundation. You can tell from the trailer, that the books the books can't be directly adapted to the screen. It's not going to work well. But to use the framework of the books to build this series, it definitely could be the Game of Thrones that they want it to be. A lot of it's going to depend on if they meet that potential. But and I think that's always the issue. But
we shall see.
all right, a Game of Thrones with less nudity would be awesome.
Yeah, and
Man,
all
I,
the other
I
things.
wish I wish they made an edited version, because it's such a great story. It's so good, but they got to throw all that garbage in it.
Well,
So
it's a story about the depravity of humanity and what people will do for power. And
yeah, it
that's
is.
exactly what it's about. So you get to see all the ways people can be depraved in that series.
But at least it'd be nice to have an option to have a black screen when there's garbage going on. So
It's fair.
anyway,
Put your hand
I know how
over.
depraved the humankind can be. So all right, so let's talk about iMessage updates. So this is exciting when we're looking at iMessage. So what? Gotta find it in the on the page here. But go ahead. Why don't you kick off the iMessage or message?
There's a few updates. There's really only one that I'm excited about, and that's the pinned conversations. And so what this is at the top of your message list, you can have up to 6 pinned conversations, and they get like really big circles for that person's memoji, and they're essentially like your favorites, right? So you know exactly where those conversations live. You don't have to scroll through your list of messages, and they can be groups or individuals, and you'll get notifications on the big circles at the top with a reply, and in group conversations it'll show a smaller picture of the person that replied last. So it's just a really I think visually it looks nice. It's going to take some getting used to have these 2 rows of 3 big circles at the top of your messages screen if you choose to have all 6. But having pinned conversations for the people that you talk with the most is going to be very handy.
Yeah, and there's 9 at the top.
Oh, is it 9? Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it was just 6. So there you go. For those popular folks, you get 3 extra options.
Woo! So I'm not that popular, but at least I can keep an extra 3 in there. So
Yeah.
the way it animates too, if you go to apple.com and go in and take a look at how they've done this, you can look at your top 9 or your top 6 or how many ever you have there, and as they send new messages, little bubbles pop up to show you their message.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of neat. And like you were saying in the group text, you got your little bubble of people that are talking in there. So
Yeah, I think it's visually it's going to be a good touch, but I think practically it's going to be very very useful.
the other thing was being able to do mentions. So if you mention somebody's name in a group text, it calls them out so that they know that they've been messaged directly. There's new Memoji styles, new Memoji stickers. Man, who doesn't love Memojis?
I don't know. I don't know why they don't call them memojis though. That makes me crazy because it's a picture of me. It should be a memoji, but it's always been pronounced memoji, and it's just like
Mm-hmm.
Apple, these so-called branding wizards. Like you have me in the word, and it's a picture of me. But I digress. Sorry. Opinions. I have them.
Settle down, would you?
I will not stand for this.
Inline replies and group messages.
Mm. This is the other thing that I guess I would be excited about is the inline replies. I think it's thank you finally. Woohoo.
Mm-hmm. You know what's really not exciting about this? That
Having
some of these features aren't going to work with your green bubble friends.
of course they won't. I mean, why would they?
One of two things has to happen here. Either all my friends have to buy an iPhone, or Apple has to offer a Android version of messages.
They're not gonna do it.
I have as much of a chance of my friends all getting iPhones as I do getting messages for Android.
Well, I will share a story of hope with you real quick, Mitch. I have a friend who her and her entire family are Android and Windows. Her dad is an IT engineer, so they were raised the Windows way, and when smartphones came along, Android and just anti Apple and iPhones and all of that, and like staunchly,
Mm-hmm.
like just rooted deep. And her husband has an iPhone and appreciates the iOS experience. And she texted me the other day on Father's Day actually to wish me a happy Father's Day, and I noticed I was like, wait a minute, her circle's blue.
Oh, oh.
And I thought, surely that must be a mistake.
That is super exciting.
And then I didn't even respond. I don't even think I acknowledged the Happy Father's Day. I was like, when did you get an iPhone? And she responded, LOL, all caps. I knew you would notice. And then we had about a 20-minute back and forth about the things that she likes about the iPhone versus the things that she doesn't like. And it's with the change of ecosystem comes all the things that like I said about the AirPods. The things I don't like is because I'm not used to them, right? So it was really funny though. So there is hope, Mitch. There is hope.
There's always hope. Well, thankfully, I do. I actually would laugh to get like all my friends that have iPhones in one uh, thread, and everyone else in another thread. That'd be nice. Anyway, whether it happened or not. Anyway, so let's move on to the iPhone and iOS 14. So I'll let you have this one. Go ahead.
Okay. Um, when they did the video intro and I saw the widgets on the home screen, I literally had a tear run down my face. And then I thought to myself, are you crying? Are you a grown man crying because there's widgets on the home screen? And I think it was because I wanted it and I predicted it and it came true and I didn't know how to handle the fact that I was right, except for the fact, Mitch, that I'm not right. You can have widgets on your home screen and they come in multiple sizes, but you can't, they are not interactive. They are only for glancing at data. So I got part of my wish. I did not get my full wish. So I take that tear back. Apple can't have it.
I'm just gonna be honest with you. I think that's a matter of time.
Oh yeah, I know. They always do this where like they introduce a new feature and it's part of what we want and all what we want, and then over the course of, time, it grows into what we want it to be. So I will remain patient, but it will be nice to have the widgets, especially with third-party apps. Like, because right now it's obviously beta season, so it's only Apple apps that have them. But yes, so you can now have a widget on your home screen. You can stack them, which I think is brilliant because they do take up a lot of space, and you can have multiple sizes, but you can stack them yourself. Or there's a thing called a smart stack where Apple will, um, like the Siri watch face, surface what they think you want when you need it. Uh, the effectiveness of that remains to be seen. Hopefully, it's better than the Siri watch face. Although I haven't, like I said, I haven't had the watch in like a year and a half, so perhaps that watch face has gotten better. Um, so I am excited for the widgets, though they're not fully functioning the way that I want them to. We are making progress, and I'm excited to play with them, and I'm excited to see what third-party developers can do. And if I remember correctly, I was listening to App Stories yesterday, and I believe that much like now on the watch face, you can have multiple complications from the same app, which we can get more into when we talk about watchOS. I believe you could have multiple widgets for the same app. So you could have like a reminder stack that you can flip through that just has all your different lists on there. So that's, I think, I'm glad they did that. So if apps have multiple data sets in them, you can have one widget per data set and just stack those. And so you have your stack for that app and be able to glance the data that you need right away. So like that'll come in handy for OmniFocus for me, I think, to have different, if I can have different perspectives in a stack and just be able to slide through my perspectives on my home screen.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, please. That's amazing. I will take that and run with it.
We're going to need to talk about OmniFocus at some point in the future. So I'm a huge user of it as well.
Well, I think you could probably teach me a few things then, Mitch. I just switched to it like 3 weeks
Oh,
ago.
right on.
Yeah, I was a Things user for ever.
And that was my progression too. I started with Things, and then I switched over to OmniFocus after listening to a podcast that really deep dived it.
uh,
And I'm like, whoa, because the biggest difference is that Things is like this to-do list that is a to-do list. And over the years that they've added some kind of irritating little features, I hated doing well, here's your review for the day. What do you want to add? And it's like, I don't need that. I already told you what I wanted to add. OmniFocus, on the other hand, like you can really make it what you want to because it's so deep with features.
mm-hmm.
You know, my wife was complaining about something the other day with OmniFocus, and she's like, "Well, I can't do that." I was like, "Well, why don't you set up? They used to call them contexts. What do they call them now? Tags?
Yeah, you can have tags.
Like, yeah. So I says, why don't you just set up your tags so that you can sort it like that? What? And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I can totally do that." So it's something that the customizability of OmniFocus is so deep, and I totally get if somebody just wants to use reminders because it's simple, it's easy, you just make a list and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
But OmniFocus gives you like I run my life on OmniFocus, literally. I have I have a reminder in OmniFocus to take a shower every other day because if I don't, I might not think of it. So I'm serious. I'm not a teenage boy anymore. I don't have to take showers every day. But to make sure that it's on my schedule every other day, so that if maybe I've had a few days off of work or something like that, it pops into my head and says, "Hey, you know what? Don't forget to do this because you're gonna appreciate having done it." So, but when I do need to take them more often, I do. So, but that's just an example of like something I use in OmniFocus that just it helps me to not forget to do stuff. I figure if everything's in there, I have a reminder in there for everything, then I don't have to try and remember it. And I think that's the key to a good task manager. But we can discuss that on another episode sometime in the future. So, all right. But I agree. Having the third party support for these widgets is going to be critical for me. If it's just the Apple apps, it's going to fall down for me. I want I really want one for Overcast, and I think Marco said on the episode the other day that he's not putting a lot of focus into it right now. That makes me really sad. Um, but having one for Fantastical, having one for what's the other one that I was looking at? OmniFocus, I think, was the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, having one for OmniFocus and Fantastical would be huge for me. Having a nice big carrot weather widget would be incredible, and I know they'll do it because they're crazy like that. Um, but just having that available to me I might become a multiple screens guy. If I can have all these widgets on different screens.
Yeah, and so I think that what you said right there leads perfectly into the next feature that I want to talk about, which is the app library.
I'm really interested to know after our conversation last week what you think of this.
I love it because now I don't have to have multiple screens that are inherent folders of different functionality. Now, App Library will do it for me. So I can have the apps that I need and the data that I need in widget form on one or two home screens, and then everything else can just sit in the app library. I mean, yes, please. Now that is assuming that the sorting and the grouping of those apps A is perfect or B is editable. And that I'm not sure about. It would
Yeah.
make sense for it to be editable for me to make my own groups on the app library. But again, that may be a feature that comes down the road. It may not be version one. And I don't have the betas installed because I'm not an Apple developer. So I can't confirm or deny that part of the functionality. But even if that's the case, I'm still going to use it because you can search, you can scroll. It does have the um, recent, what are the two folders? Recently added and suggestions at the top,
Hmm.
and then everything below that. So I'm gonna have one, maybe two home screens, depending on how many widgets I have, and that will change over time as third-party ones become available, and then just go full app library and just see what that's like. But I'm excited about that because it's less flipping screens and more just here's what I need, here's what I need, here's everything else, and that excites me.
Yeah, and I would agree to a certain degree on that. I do think that they're not going to be any customizability right away, but I can definitely see that coming next year or the year after that. I think that most likely we'll see it next year where they'll say, "Hey, guess what? Now you can make your own folders and app library." So, and this is kind of how I work anyway. So I have one page. I used to keep one full page of folders, and everything was organized in those folders so that I knew where I needed to go. And these were the apps that I don't use every day, so they were kind of buried in those folders. So this is going to be very similar to what I was doing before, only perhaps a little bit more refined. The problem is that somebody was telling me about the way that they do their phone, and so I decided to put a bunch of folders at the top of my main screen. I sent you that, yeah, and I don't dislike it. It actually works pretty nice. I like having all of those folders accessible. right on the front page. But I think that with the widgets coming, I'm going to change how I do everything on the phone, and this app library could be pretty cool. I think we'll talk about the betas later, but I think when I get an opportunity to get a hold of this and play with it a little bit, we I think that'll really define how I'm going to do this. So one other thing of note is that they talked about those the little applets. What do they call them?
App clips.
App clips. There we go. I don't have any purpose for these at this point.
Yeah, I think this is going to be more for people who live in major cities that
Right.
go
Like
to new places.
maybe if you go visit Chicago, you might have a reason to use one of these, but for me in rural Wisconsin, I'm not going to need it. So,
Yeah, I think the
but
one that I could use is there's an Amtrak station here that I take when I take the train up to the city, and it would be nice to have an Amtrak app clip, so I don't have the Amtrak app just sitting on my phone, for the 6 times I'm going to use the train this year. So, but that's also assuming I'm taking public transport anytime in the near future.
I love that you use Amtrak,
Yeah, man,
right?
because it takes just as long to drive there,
Hmm.
and it's cheaper to pay for the train than it is to pay for parking and to
Oh, it's
find
great.
parking.
So real quick aside, this is going to be a 3-hour episode, dang it. Um, so a few years ago, my wife and I went down and visited Chicago. So we live it's about a 3.5, 4 hour drive from where we're at. And we took the train down there, and I told my wife, I am not driving for the whole week that we're in Chicago. I don't want to drive down there. I don't want to drive back. So she lined up our train tickets, and we have a Amtrak station about 3 or 4 blocks from where we live here. So it's really accessible. We actually grabbed our suitcases and we walked over to the Amtrak station, and then we took the train down there. We used Lyft while we were down there.
Hmm.
We walked almost everywhere else. I think we only used Lyft like 2 or 3 times while we were down there, but we walked. We were right down on the river, so we walked over to Millennium Park, and we walked up into a lot of the shops that are just north of the river there. We were right across the river from the Apple store.
Oh
So
yeah, I know exactly where you are.
yeah, so I spent a lot of time there.
That apple's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah. We stayed in the Wyndham Hotel that's right on the river there. So my wife was working for the company at the time, and we were able to get some cheap rates to stay there. So
Nice.
it was a lot of fun. Yeah, and because we knew people, we got a room upgrade, and it was. But the only downside, and politics aside, the only downside was when we looked out the window of our room,
I don't know where this is going.
was the Trump Tower right across the river.
Yeah, it's in a very prominent location on the river, and it
Yep,
is
yep.
not small.
But I laugh because we had to go back and watch one of the Transformers movies that took place in Chicago. There, I'm forgetting which one it was, if it was Dark of the Moon or what it was, but I had to go back and watch that because a lot of it took place right in that area. So, and it was filmed down there, so it looked great.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah. So anyway, what were we talking about?
We were
Oh,
talking about app
app
clips.
clips. So yeah, I like I said, I don't know that I'm going to need those a whole lot. So, but it's cool. It's cool that they're doing it, and I know that some people really will use those a lot. So
Definitely. Um, Picture in picture, Mitch. I'm actually quite excited about this.
I think it's going to be cool.
Yeah, especially like with FaceTime. Like I FaceTime my parents and quite a bit because they live in Detroit and I live outside Chicago, and I have a 3.5-year-old, so they like to see their granddaughter, as often as possible. Um, but being able to still keep the FaceTime video on the screen while I look something up, or like oftentimes when I'm on the phone, I'll ask my dad about a project I want to do, and you can go to Safari and look stuff up, but the video goes away, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's so much more practical because the whole point of FaceTime calls is to see the person you're talking to. So now you can see the person you're talking to while you are looking something up to ask them a question or to answer their question or whatever. Um, And I love the feature where if you do need the full screen, you can slide the video to the side, the audio will still
Hmm.
play, and then you can bring it back, but that's your choice, not the system's choice. And
Right.
I really, really like that. So I'm excited. It looks like it works for, pretty much any full screen video you can turn into picture in picture. So I'm sure it's going to work with like, Netflix and YouTube TV and Apple TV Plus and
Hulu.
all that. Like I would imagine,
Yes,
I would
man, I
imagine
hope so.
it shouldn't be hard because they're all using the same system video player. So
Yeah, I really hope it's in the um firmware as opposed to like when I watch on my iPad's had this for a while. Not everything supports it. So
oh, well, maybe I'm being wishful in my thinking.
I I r- I hope they get on board, honestly. And that everything will support it, or if it's baked right into the firmware that it's not even the choice of the developer of the app, but rather it's just treated as video. This is what video does. So we'll see. So it still bothers me that I can't watch picture in picture on Hulu on my Mac. How is that a prop? Or no, I'm sorry. Maybe that is on my. No, that's on my Mac. Trying to think. I'll have to try that later. We'll
Just
throw that in follow up. How's that?
make the window smaller.
Man, it drives me crazy. But then you got all the crap that comes with it. Anyway,
So the last
um,
thing I want to talk about for iOS real quick, I'm going to cut you off, sorry, is a tweet that I found from Federico Vitici, who, if you guys and girls don't know who he is yet and you're into this stuff, follow Federico Vitici and go to macstories.net. I think it's the best Apple site on the internet. And also MKBHD had this in his iOS 14 YouTube review as well. You can now double or triple tap on the back of your phone as a way to launch system functions or custom shortcuts.
mhm.
So literally, you just take your finger, you hold your phone, you take your finger, and you go double tap, and it can run a shortcut to do whatever you want it to do. Triple tap, it can do whatever you want it to do, and it's buried in accessibility settings right now, much like the cursor support for mice was on the iPad before full trackpad and cursor support showed up in what 13.4, I believe. Um, but it's just another way to interact with your phone quickly to do things that you want to have readily accessible. Like if you don't like having to swipe down from the top right to get to the camera, or sliding. Oh gosh, I can't even do it on my phone. You could double tap on the back to open your camera. You could triple tap on the back to open messages to a specific recipient, say your spouse, that sort of stuff. Um, pretty interesting. Why they added it? Why it didn't get mentioned on stage? I don't know. Um, but I'm interested to see how people use this in the future, and I'm sure the internet will be rife with people making suggestions or showing how they use the double and triple tap to take quick action with their phone.
And I'm sure there's gonna be people that are be like, well, why can't we do this like a triple tap I'm sorry, quadruple tap,
Yeah.
or if I move my phone like this, it's all using the accelerometer. So there is a vast variety of different things that could be done.
Why doesn't it support Morse code?
SOS, yeah.
Yes.
A whole new generation of people that would learn Morse code then.
It would be SOC, System on a Chip.
Yeah, there you go. There was one other thing that we should call out just really briefly, and is that the compact calls.
Oh,
The
yes, yes, yes,
the fact
finally.
that calls no longer take up the whole screen. Siri the same way. They're
Yes.
really getting away from you having to leave the context of where you're at to to deal with stuff that's coming in. You know, so with that, you're just getting a little notification that comes down that says, "Hey, so and so is calling, accept or decline." You know, and I think if I'm understanding this correctly, again, neither one of us is on the beta. You can swipe down on that, and then it'll take up the full screen. So and you'll have all the options that you're used to having. So
Yeah, it's like a natural evolution of the UI, right? We
yeah,
hijacked the whole screen, and now we don't. So yeah, I'm a big fan. Less intrusive, less jarring, um, better user experience all the way around. I'm very happy about it.
yeah. So real quick lightning round. We've got cycling directions that neither one of us will probably use. Guides. They talked about these like tourism guides that they'll have built into the app. Um, that's going to be part of Apple Maps.
Hmm.
The translate feature will be pretty cool. It's pretty limited right now to the languages that's available, but
I'm
and it
actually
looks like
really
you.
excited about that one.
Yeah, I think it'll be nice. Where we're at, and you probably deal with this too, because we get a lot of people up from Chicago that vacation up in this area. But Polish would be really nice, and Polish is not available here. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of Polish folks in Chicago. The one that I'm excited about is Spanish. We have a very, very large Hispanic population in the city that I live in, and especially at our church. And one
yeah,
of my best friends here, who's on staff at the church, is actually from Mexico City. And so I always like to say really stupid things to him in Spanish just to get him to laugh.
yeah,
And now I have an app on my phone where I can sneak attack him. I can talk it into, type it into the phone and then just shove it in front of his face and watch him read it. And it's going to
yeah,
be it's not going to be great for him, but I'm excited to, I'm excited to be able to say even more stupid things in
yeah.
Spanish and
Well,
expand my vocabulary in
yeah.
a
Well, my
very not useful way.
my best friend for the last 25 years is fluent in Spanish. He's his parents are from Mexico and Texas, the southern part of Texas. So he grew up with that. So yeah, that'll be fun with him too. But he speaks English just fine. He grew up in the States, but yeah, he was the one that we'd go out to eat at a Mexican restaurant, and he would say tortilla and
Oh
quesadilla
god.
and a jalapenos. He would just do it to for fun, but some cool home upgrades. I thought you'd be on this a little bit more, or you'd want to talk about this a little bit more. But some cool upgrades to the home app.
Yeah, it's so they mentioned something
Yeah,
about a new interoperability standard made with Amazon, Google, and other smart home companies that they're all working with. And then they just didn't address it the rest of the presentation about HomeKit. And
yeah,
like, how are you going to drop that bomb and not tell me what that means and what that looks like and what to expect and when it's coming and all of that stuff? Because right now, if you want to do smart home stuff, you have to choose an ecosystem and then you're kind of stuck in it. And Apple's HomeKit is very limited in um, not what it can do, but what your options for vendors are. Like there's only a small slice of the smart home pie that works with HomeKit stuff. If you go to Google or Amazon, you get many, 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 many more options for devices and companies that you can work with. And there's obviously pros and cons. HomeKit stuff is more expensive because Apple, and they rave about how their privacy is so much better than Google's and Amazon's, which is shown to be what's the word? Uh, Not great in certain areas. So I am actually quite excited about this because, like I said, I'm moving into a house later today, and I will be getting some cameras and some smart lights so that now I can take advantage of the picture in picture on my Apple TV of the video cameras. I can use the smart lights to set up scenes. I have one app on my phone called Portal. That is a sound app essentially, and it
hmm
has recorded sounds from all over the world, like the Pacific Ocean in Hawaii, some jungles in the Amazon, all the different places around the world, and it integrates with Philips Hue lights so that, and it's got stunning visuals. that take up the screen based on what you're listening to, and it will match the Philips Hue lights to what is on your screen, so you get the full audio visual experience. And I'm actually really excited to try that out. Yeah, the HomeKit stuff is super exciting. They will have adaptive lighting during the day, so that the color temperature of your lights will adjust with the daytime, so that in the evening the lights are warmer, which is more like orange, less blue, and then during the day it'll match daylight, so it'll be bluer. Um, they're adding face recognition for doorbells and cameras, which is great. So like if I have a camera set up on my front door and it's my friend Beto that I just mentioned, the one from Mexico City, it can
Mm-hmm.
say, "Oh, I'll get a notification. Beto's at the front door," because it recognizes his face, which is super cool. And then I believe there's another feature too. They mentioned, I don't have it written down, but you can set the hot area for a camera to say only notify me if someone comes in this zone.
Yep.
So
And
like,
that's pretty common of a lot of the camera apps.
mhm.
Because I've got a Ring and I've got a Waze Cam here, or Wise Cam. And they do that where you set a hot zone. So
And it just makes sense, right? Like, don't notify me every time someone walks on my sidewalk. Tell me when they're on my porch.
it still does that, but
Oh, well, hopefully this one will be
uh,
better.
yeah,
But yeah, and
but
I am excited that the Apple TV, while it serves as the HomeKit hub, will now have more HomeKit features built into it. So I will detail my adventuring into smart home stuff as I make those upgrades. But
yeah.
I'm excited about it.
And we can talk more about that in the future too, because I've got some stuff here too that'd be interesting to talk about. Um, some improvements to Safari, and we can run through these real quick. That translation feature carries over into Safari. So if you pull up a web page that's not in English, it's pretty quick to translate it. If you don't speak English, you can translate it into your language as well. And why are you listening to the podcast if you don't? But
They're learning.
right. Um, Password monitoring. This will be kind of a cool thing. I have one password that does this a
Yeah,
little bit already, but
Watchtower.
yeah, but being able to look and see, how many times have I used the same password on different sites, and which sites do I need to upgrade that password on? So it might be a little bit easier, seeing as though it's baked right into iOS to do that there, and I think that's going to be in macOS as well. So, and then the monitoring of what do they call it? The privacy report, where you
Hmm.
can see who's tracking you and all that kind of stuff. So, car keys. Are you excited about car keys?
No,
I can't afford a BMW.
I was gonna say I don't have a
So
BMW 540i. I
yeah.
have a Ford
So
Escape. Like I'm good.
right. So we are going to be buying a new car later this year, but it's not going to be a BMW. I can guarantee you that. But I am excited about some of the CarPlay stuff that they're adding, because I am doing my best to make sure that we do get the CarPlay with the new vehicle. So I don't even know where it's really new there, other than you can get some new app types are available, and wallpaper. That might be cool, instead of a black screen. But I'll just get a creepy picture of me with my eyes looking out the screen at me.
Yeah, that's
Oh yeah, I like freaking my wife out. So um, look, hun. Ah! So um, do we want to talk about the AirPods now, or do we want to save that? I kind of wanted to hit iPad OS real quick, since we're already talking about the iOS
yeah.
updates.
Let's do iPad so I can be disappointed and then be happy later.
Let's just put it this way: a lot of these updates are going to be coming to the iPad as well, but not all the ones that we care about. So they do get the new widgets in the Today view, or if you have the Today panel up on your front page. But you will not be able to move those widgets over into the app grid.
Why not? This is so stupid. I'm so mad.
Oh boy. We have triggered a meltdown with Cam here.
It makes no sense.
Um, yeah. So that's not going to be in iPad OS, and as far as I know, App Libraries isn't going to be there either. So it seems like they just really didn't either ran out of time to implement this stuff, or maybe they've just got a different plan for the iPad. Maybe it'll make sense more like next year or the year after why they didn't do that, but doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now.
I if it's any other reason than we ran out of time, it's not a good
Hmm.
reason.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Like you, so imagine this, Mitch. Imagine this beautiful world on your iPad.
Hmm.
You have the apps that you use the most in your dock. You have a dashboard of helpful widgets on your home screen. You slide to the right, you have your app library.
Hmm.
Why? Why can't we have that? We have it on the iPhone. Why can't we have that on the iPad? I want that. I want the apps that I use regularly in my dock. I want a dashboard of helpful widgets on my home screen, and I want every other app in the app library. One home screen, one dock, one app library. Perfection. It doesn't make any sense. Why we don't have it?
It doesn't outside of they just ran out of time to add it at this point. I think we'll see that come, or there's going to be a reasonable reason that will come apparent later in some kind of other update, like that they're moving that iPad OS in a different direction than the iPhone. But I don't really have any ideas as to what that could be. So it'll be one or the other. There's a reason they didn't do it. So
I'm
at
still
least
mad
I'm
about
optimistic.
it. I just, yeah, it just makes me upset. That's all.
Anything else we wanted to say about the iPad?
Yeah, they added sidebars and toolbars to everything. I don't know, just like the Mac. So real. So there was jokes about the iOS 14, right? Oh, widgets on the home screen and all these different. Oh, where have we seen this before? Oh yeah, Android. And then John Siracusa made the joke about the sidebars and the toolbars. He goes, sidebars and toolbars in Windows. Wow, where have I seen this? Oh yeah, on the Mac. And it's
Yeah.
just really funny how, the iPad back when it was introduced was never ever going to be anything like the Mac. And iOS and Mac OS were two separate things. And now it's like you look at what you can do in an iPad and you look at the redesign that we'll get to for Mac OS here in a minute. And you're like, well, gee, I wonder how long that's going to remain true that they're separate.
Hmm.
It's very interesting. But it makes sense to have the sidebars. So you can actually navigate and drag and drop like photos. If you want to add a photo to an album, now you just drag it over to the sidebar where the album is and drop it in there. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is 9,000 times easier now. Apple
Yeah.
Music now has a sidebar. Like it makes sense. And so I'm glad to see it happen. But they added, so you search on your iPad now, but they essentially turned search into Spotlight from the Mac on the iPad, which again, maturation. So good. I'm happy about that.
And that's why I'm kind of wondering if the iPod, if they're not positioning the iPad more in the Mac OS space versus being a mobile device, and that's why it didn't get the widgets in the way that the iPhone did.
But widgets aren't trapped in the mobile world. Like that's an opinion that they may have, but that's not like it doesn't make sense. Oh, it's not a mobile device, so it doesn't get widgets. Why? Why can't I have widgets on my Mac? Oh wait, I can. So it
So here's the thing:
I'm
is
gonna
you
fight
can't.
you on this, Mitch. I'm gonna fight you.
I I want widgets that can live on the Mac screen on the desktop, because years ago there was an app called Confabulator. Do you remember this?
No, I do not. Never heard that word before.
So Confabulator was an app that eventually they got bought by Yahoo and became Yahoo Widgets. And what it allowed you to do is it basically put a layer over your desktop, and you could position widgets on your desktop. So you could have a little clock, you could have a little weather widget. You could do all this stuff on the main screen, and it was available for Windows and Mac. And you could do all that stuff there. Well, not long after Yahoo bought it, they pretty much deprecated it, and then now you can't get it anymore. But
Seems like a
you
good
know,
way of use of money.
yeah, and right, they must have been buying engineers. I don't know, but to me, there was another thing where you could move dashboard widgets to the desktop as well, but that was pretty short lived. I can't remember if that was an app that you had to download. It was like basically a hack or what it was, and that had never really got my attention because I don't really care for the dashboard widgets. But like the Yahoo widgets, there were tons of widgets you could download. You know, it was a pretty exciting ecosystem at one point, and then I think that's part of the reason why it got deprecated because people just stopped making widgets for them. But
Hmm.
I would love to see widgets come to the desktop of Mac OS, at least as an option. So maybe because I keep a clock on the main page of my Mac because it just makes it easier to keep track of the time. I want something bigger than that little thing up in the corner, you know, because then I can glance and see it.
The new widgets are coming to Mac OS, but I think they're going to be stuck in the today view like they are on the iPad. But you'll
Right,
at least
right.
have the new look widgets, so that'll be nice.
How cool would it be to drag it out onto the desktop, though?
I don't know. I agree with you. I totally agree
Yeah,
with you. It would be awesome. One more thing on the iPad before we move on is
yeah.
the scribble feature,
Yes,
where
that was
now
another thing I'd forgotten about that.
so it's you can handwrite into any text field, like on the Safari search bar you can type in espn.com and it will take you to espn.com instead of typing. Um, my thought about this is challenge accepted, boys, because my handwriting is atrocious. It is so bad.
Well, I've heard a few podcasts in the last week where, excuse me, where the like Mike Hurley and them were trying it, and they were just writing their regular handwriting, and it was pretty spot on. It worked pretty well. So we'll see. Uh, and we'll get to the betas here in a little bit. We keep kind of skirting the edge of whether or not we're going to install the betas or not, but we'll talk about that as a separate topic today. Anything else?
Not from iPad OS. I'm mostly just
Okay.
bummed.
How about the AirPods?
This I'm excited about actually.
Yeah, there's
The
some cool, interesting things going on here.
the automatic switching. Okay, this is case in point of why Apple being control freaks and owning the entire stack and the entire experience is a benefit.
100%.
Because now with my swanky new AirPod Pros, I can be listening to a podcast on my phone. I can hit pause. I can pick up my iPad, start watching YouTube TV, and the sound will automatically go to my AirPods. I didn't touch my AirPods. I didn't tell the device, "Hey, switch to my iPad." It just knows and it just switches, and it's yes, this I cannot wait for this, especially because with a 3.5-year-old in the house, oftentimes if I want to watch a soccer game or a movie while she's asleep, I'll listen with my AirPods so as
Hmm.
to not wake my child up. And now it's even easy. They've made switching to AirPods on the Apple TV easier in the recent years. But now if all I have to do is turn it on and it automatically switches to my AirPods, like, dude, it's a great time to be alive, Mitch.
I might be misremembering this, but to me, I thought that was part of the promise when they first came out with the AirPods.
Oh, I
And
don't remember.
yeah, and so I I'm looking at this thinking I thought that's the way they were always supposed to work. Um, but at the same time, I'm obviously wrong. So yeah, I'm excited about this if it works. And what is going to define which what's going to be in my AirPods and what's not. So if I'm sitting watching something on my Apple TV and I pick up my phone and start scrolling through Instagram and the
Oh,
audio's on, is the audio going to switch to my phone?
yeah, and then all of a sudden you're assaulted because your TV speaker is turned on really loud.
Yep.
That's a really good point, Mitch. Especially with Instagram, right? Because not everything has audio.
And I don't necessarily want to hear the audio. I
Right, 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 right.
90% of the time I don't want to hear the audio on Instagram. It just, somebody's got a, I'm going through stories and someone decided they had to throw a song in to show their workout. It's like I don't need to see that. I don't need to hear that. I don't need to see it anyway. But that's usually a quick flip. But
Mm-hmm.
I you know it's just jarring, especially when not everything has audio. But
Yeah.
that's a subject for another time.
No, but that's a really, really common use case,
Uh huh.
and I hadn't thought of that. So yeah, and now I'm really intrigued because oh man, I okay, I'm downloading the beta.
Audio
I just decided.
audio sharing for the Apple TV. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that'll be interesting. My wife and I were just talking this morning. She's got the old school AirPods, not the AirPods Pro right now. It does include those AirPods. So I don't see right now with just the two of us in the house that this is useful, but let's say we have a child, and we want to, or we're babysitting or something like that, and we're watching something and they're sleeping, now we're not interrupting them. Not that that's a big problem in our house because we have our bedrooms are quite a ways. They're on the second floor, and
Mm-hmm.
quite honestly, this house is over 100 years old, so you can't hear from the some what's going on in the upstairs. You just don't hear it downstairs, and vice versa, because they just built the houses that way back then. Um, but yeah, it does give the option of being able to share that audio in AirPods, so I like that.
Indeed.
Let's see, we let's talk about spatial audio real quick, and then I do want to talk about the headphone accommodations that they're offering with this. But spatial audio, it seems to me you were pretty excited about this,
Yeah. Well, again, if it works, right? But the
right?
concept is that they have done some serious voodoo here, and um, when you are using the AirPods Pro and you're watching a show on your phone or your iPad or the Apple TV, they wanted to, as best as possible, mimic surround sound, which is usually a 5.1 or 7.1 system, right? So five speakers in a sub or seven speakers in a sub, right? I think I got that correct. Uh, which obviously your AirPods are only two speakers and they're stuck in your head. So they had to do some lots of math apparently, and now they, based on the gyroscope and the positioning of the AirPods versus the screen that you're watching, be it your phone, your TV, or your iPad, they will enhance or decrease certain frequencies to allow for these surround sound effects. So sounds not only come from you left and right, but from the front or from the back or back and to the right or up, um, which is, I mean, really, really, really awesome. That's why going to the movie theaters is usually such a good experience, is because the audio is so rich and you're in the audio. And that's one of my favorite things about the movie theater experience. And so they've done that, and then they do the math. So like if I turn my head to, like, I don't know, look at something that's happening that's not on my screen, the audio stays where it's supposed to in relation to the screen and to me. So you don't get that weird, like, you're kind of dizzy and you're going to fall over thing. The audio stays where it's supposed to be, even though the speakers are physically moving, which is really, really kind of cool. Um, so I'm really excited about it. Again, we'll have to see how it shakes out, but they seemed pretty confident in their presentation of it that it's going to be awesome. So,
Yeah, and they showed it with the iPad. So my thought is, will this work with the Apple TV? And if it
um,
does, this would be pretty cool.
yeah, I got the impression that it would. I don't know why they would limit it to just the iPad.
Yeah. So have you ever had a sound bar or like a 2.1 system that faked surround sound?
I have not owned one. I know people who have them, and I've experienced them, but
So for years, my wife and I lived in small apartments pretty much. And so when I upgraded our system at one point, I bought a nice Yamaha soundbar, and the that fake surround sound. It is not perfect, but I'll tell you what, it tricks my ear sometimes. You know, I I think where I notice it the most is when I'm watching football, because the audience sounds like it's surrounding you, with it. So that,
Hmm.
in those cases, I think it does work nicely, but it's a little different than spatial audio because spatial audio, you don't have the room to bounce the sound around. This is only happening in your ears, so this is going to be a little bit different, but it's been done. So
Right, and to me, it's like it's the natural analogy is the camera on your iPhone versus an actual physical, DSLR mirrorless camera. Like you can mimic a lot of what you get on the big camera, but due to physics, you cannot perfectly replicate what you would get on a big camera. Same goes with the speakers. They can probably mimic a ton and it will continue to get better, but because, like you said, physics, room size versus ear canal size, you cannot perfectly mimic it. But shoot, if we can get 75% of the way to surround sound with my $250 AirPods, yes, please, because then I'm not spending $3,000 on a surround sound system. Like, absolutely, hands down, I will take 75% for that much money. I mean, that's a done deal for me.
and my wife and I just had a conversation about $250 headphones this morning. And I was like, well, my defense for this is that you're buying computers that go in your ear. You know, these I mean, that's what it is. It's got a chip in there. It's purposed for listening to audio, but that's a computer in there that is doing a lot more than just piping audio into your ear.
Well, yeah, and it's a microphone. Like, yeah, I don't have a problem.
No, I don't think $250 is out of line. I mean, any of the headphones that you have seen over the years that are completely wireless like this, man, they used to start at $400. So I'm thinking of Bragi made some. They were one of the pioneers in this area, and they started at 400 and went up from there. So, I mean, this is a technology that's not cheap to make. So,
Indeed.
all right. Last thing on the AirPods is the headphone accommodations. My wife suffers from tinnitus, and I think this would be really cool if this really kind of helps with that. Because her and I were talking this morning. She's like, she gets in the health app. She gets stuff in the health app that says, "Hey, you're listening to your audio too loud," because she has to turn it up sometimes to get over the tinnitus, and she's probably damaging her hearing
Hmm.
because of it. So, if this feature allows her to tune that audio to help to neutralize the ringing that she gets in her right ear a little bit, so that she doesn't have to turn it up so loud, how cool is that?
Yeah, I mean, we talk so much about, the technology features and like the idea of like coveting new tech and, ooh, now I can have pinned conversations that's going to change. Like, but no, this is an example of when the technology can actually improve someone's quality of life.
Right.
And that is really awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know that I have much more to say about that, but I think that'd be really cool for people that are dealing with issues like that. So,
Hmm. For sure.
all right, cool. What's next on our list, man?
I think
Mac OS?
we got to talk about, well, we got to talk about WatchOS and tvOS too.
I think I walked out of the room during tvOS because I don't remember anything about what was going on with tvOS.
Oh, real quick, then I'll just run through it. So there's now multi-user support for games on the TV. It now supports the Xbox Adaptive Controller and the Xbox Elite Pro 2 Mega Awesome Super Expo, whatever. I forget what it's actually called, but the super fancy Xbox controller. Um,
Hmm. The
Picture-in-picture
Elite or
video.
whatever.
Sorry.
The Elite?
Yes, I think yeah.
Is that something like that?
I think you're correct. Yes. Picture-in-picture video on the Apple TV now, because finally. Um, I mean, why would you not want it on a giant screen? And
Right.
if I remember correctly, I think you can have multiple picture-in-picture windows, but I could just be making that up. And then we talked about foundation, but it's also so like the picture in picture is nice because like you can, I don't know, have your security camera up while you're playing a game, or I could have, I could have a soccer match picture in picture while I'm playing a game on my TV or looking at photos or whatever. It's a nice feature, and I'm excited about it. And the multi-user support for games is going to be nice for families. Um, so I'm not a huge gamer on my tvOS, but I know that there are like 10 people that are, so good for them.
I just did that for the first time this morning. I noticed that the remote app on the iPhone actually has a little controller built into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I tried it this morning. I played Alto's Odyssey for about 5 minutes.
I love that game.
Um, that's about how long it took me to die. But
5 minutes is a
but
long run, dude.
yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. But it's not me on the iPhone. So but yeah, it was okay, and it's actually had a lot less lag than the controller. My issue with the controller has always been playing games has
Mm-hmm.
been the lag. So,
Yeah.
but at any rate, um, do you
You
have
have
anything
any?
else to add?
I was just gonna run through WatchOS real quick.
Yeah, let's talk about WatchOS quick. New
Uh,
watch faces.
yeah. So new watch faces, which is nice, but now you can share them,
Yes.
which I think is going to be really fun. I don't even own a watch, and I'm going to go see what people are doing with their faces.
Hmm.
Their watch faces, not their actual faces, because that's creepy.
Man, you've
Um,
been doing some cool stuff with your face, man.
I woke up like this. Um,
Yeah, I like it. It's good stuff.
so yes, what's really cool now is that you can do multiple complications per app,
Hmm.
which now allows you to build very purpose built focused watch apps for different situations. So like if you are into fitness, you can have your Nike Plus watch face, right? That has all of the different data from your Nike Plus app or the health app or your other, workout app or whatever, right? And then
Or
when
if you're into weather,
or if you're into weather like Mitch, you can have all the different weather data from Carrot Weather on one watch face,
I'm
right?
gonna love to see what they do with this.
It's going to be cool. But like, so the idea
Hmm.
is when you want the hyper focused view, you can now have it, and then you can just swipe back to your normal watch face when you don't need that information. Again, this is a step of maturation of the operating system, right? This is what people have wanted. But people also want custom complications, but opening the apps up to have multiple complications is only going to make for a better user experience for the people that choose to take advantage of it. And so it's a maturation step, and I'm really excited to see it. I probably, like I said, I was on the fence about whether I'm getting an Apple Watch, but now you can. They added dance to workouts, so now I'm totally getting an Apple Watch.
I was gonna say now you can boogie down and get credit for it.
Yeah, all that dancing I do. Oh man.
One other thing with the with being able to share the watch faces, you're gonna be able to download those online.
Hmm.
You know,
Just like short.
obviously it's not going to be like I'm downloading the watch face. It's just the settings, but yeah, it'll be interesting.
It'll be cool. The other thing they mentioned wind down, which is a new feature that turns on
It's
do
all
not
part of the
disturb.
sleep track. Hmm.
Yep, lets you have bedtime related shortcuts to choose from, which I think is kind of funny. And then you can now sleep track with the watch, and then you can choose between either a taptic alarm to wake you up or audio. And it also has hand washing auto detection, including a countdown, which I think is like really funny and hopefully only going to be applicable for the next month or two. But I realize that's a pipe dream.
So I told my wife that I actually showed her on the website that they're going to have this hand washing feature. She flipped out. She thought that was awesome. So I was like, it'll remind you throughout the day that you need to wash your hands, and then when you are washing your hands, it's going to let you know if you didn't wash long enough.
And when did they add toothbrush detection?
Right? And my toothbrush already does that.
Wasn't that fancy? So that's
I
WatchOS.
got a fancy one. I like fancy things. So Siri translation on the watch, shortcuts on the watch.
Yes, I didn't even write that down, and I feel like a bad person because of it. I'm interested to see what that is like on the watch because you can fit like what, two or three shortcuts before you have to scroll.
Yeah,
Um, but I think it will be nice to. Oh, here's a question.
yeah.
Does the Apple Watch have an NFC reader in it like the iPhone does?
That's actually a good question. I know you can use it for Apple Pay, but I'm not sure if it has NFC.
Hmm.
That'd be a good thing to look up and figure out.
Yeah, we'll add that to follow up for next episode. Because then you could just set your watch next to an NFC tag and fire off shortcuts. Interesting. All right, we'll add that to follow up. But
All
yeah,
right, you ready for Big Sir?
yes. Sorry, that name just.
So, did you see the typo?
There was a typo.
I'm not sure where it was during the presentation, but there was a typo somewhere where Big Sir became Bug Sir, BUGSIR.
That's not a good. That's a bad typo. That's a bad typo.
I saw it on Twitter. Take it for a grain of salt. I'm not sure if it was actually in the presentation or somebody had the where it came from, but somebody had the typo of Bug Sir. So
That's funny.
yeah, but hilarious. So big story here. Huge graphical redesign. The UI looks quite a bit different.
Hmm.
New
How do you
app
feel about it?
icons. I think I'm gonna have to use it, but I'm I'm always excited about anything that they do visually to change. Now I may hate it when I actually get it, but and I'm always like that they're pushing it forward and doing different things. I've heard that some of the transparency is a little overwhelming right now on the betas, which I will not be running the macOS beta just as a spoiler for our last topic today. Just because I've got to be able to record audio on this machine, and we've had enough problems with that. So let's see what else do we have here. I mean, the dock looks a little different. Round, lot of rounded corners.
The added control center, which I'm actually excited about because it just makes sense. Give me one spot to go to handle all the main things like I have on my phone and my iPad. Like, yes, I think it's good. I personally love the way it looks. I know there's a lot of people that are upset that the Mac is more and more and more and more looking like iOS, and I get that. I just happen to like the way iOS looks, so I'm excited about it. But I totally understand the people who are pissed that their beloved Mac OS is turning into iOS. It's a totally fair position to have. Um,
Here's my personal feeling on that part of it is I think they're trying to bring a synergy between it's not that they're trying to make Mac into iPad. I think those will always be different things. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring a design language into this that is universal so that if you are using an iPhone, if you're using an iPad, you're using a Mac, you have a basic idea of how everything works.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah, where if you're, it's not that suddenly we're not going to be able to all our apps are going to be full screen on the Mac or something like that. It's not going to be anything like that. But just bringing that universal design language to everything so that if you got somebody that's been running an iPad all these years, it's like, you know what, I'm going to give a Mac a try. They're not coming to this and going, oh shoot, this is like totally different.
Yeah,
I need to learn all of this. There's a little bit more synergy there.
yeah, that's a great point. I totally agree. Um, Messages got updated on the Mac too to mimic some of the features that it has had on iOS for years.
It's the Catalyst app, right?
It is, yeah. So you can do your Memoji. I'm gonna call it the right way. You can do your Memoji on your Mac now, which is nice. Some of those built-in effects, like when you type, "Happy Birthday" to someone, it does the celebration. Pinned conversations will also be in messages on the Mac, which is nice. Mac Catalyst got a big boost, more controls and capabilities for Catalyst apps. Like, hey, universal purchases, finally. So this is when we had this discussion last week, Mitch.
Hmm.
I forgot to mention this, right? Because there was the Mac Catalyst and then the Swift UI thing came up. And if you adopted Mac Catalyst early, you could not have a universal purchase for that app and your iOS apps. You had to go the Swift UI route. The Swift UI came out after Mac Catalyst, so you drop the Mac Catalyst app and then make a Swift UI app and and then do a universal. It was the whole thing was just super messy. But now with Mac Catalyst apps, you can have a universal purchase that includes the iOS apps with it. So it just I don't understand that whole Mac Catalyst Swift UI. It was just bungled. The whole thing was just not clean and not clear. And I think this is a step to try and give people that want to take different approaches parity in what they can do. I was really happy to see that on that slide. You can do keyboard shortcuts, you can have multiple windows, that sort of stuff. So the Mac Catalyst apps are becoming more robust in their capabilities to better rival native Mac apps. So that's very exciting.
The Safari updates, I think they're bringing over everything that we talked about with iOS and Mac and iPad OS as far as the I forget what they call it now. We just talked about it. Being able to check and see like what apps are tracking you, that's or what websites are tracking you and stuff like that.
Yeah, the privacy report.
They've updated like your default screen in there, and now you can have a wallpaper in Safari. I'm not sure how big a deal that is really,
Yeah,
but
I mean that's you could have had that in Chrome as well. So
yeah, that's true.
the thing that excites me the most about Safari is there's now a web extensions API, which will
Hmm.
finally allow more extensions to be in Safari, and there'll be a whole section of the Mac App Store for these extensions. Chrome has always had, really good extensions libraries, so it'll be nice to, have hopefully more useful extensions on Safari for the Mac. So we'll see how that goes and if it gets adopted. But it's nice that Apple is doing their part to allow for people to take advantage of that.
And there's quite a bit of other stuff to talk about here too, but I don't want to belabor the point. I think we've hit the high points on that. So how about the we can't call it an ARM transition, but Apple Silicon.
It was a historic day, Mitch. Did you know that?
It was a historic day.
Their secret lab where they were all very socially distanced.
I know that was a set, but man, that was kind of cool.
I wish I want to go back and watch that section just to see what's in
Hmm.
the background and if there's any Easter eggs.
I had to laugh because that's all I watched when I was watching that is I wonder what they got. They had some rack mounted
Yeah,
Mac
what
Pros
three or
in
four
there.
macro? Yeah, but I love that they saved the guy with the German accent to be the ones that talks to you in the secret lab in the basement. Like it's so good. Yes, give me the evil villain. Like, come on.
It was pretty good. And the fact that isn't he in charge of that project or
Oh
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that?
It was just
Yeah, so I mean, yeah,
it wasn't like a fake accent or it just
yeah, they weren't being kitschy about it, but
no, but the coincidence of them being in a secret computer lab in a bunker somewhere, and the guy with the very strong German or Austrian accent, it just made me chuckle.
so not that there's probably a whole lot of specifics to talk about with their transition to Apple Silicon at this point, because I mean they introduced it, they showed that what they're doing, their transition plan, gave us a little bit of information, but I think the best thing for us to do on the podcast here is how do you feel about it?
I feel like I said last time, I'm glad they finally did it because now we can move forward, right? It's
Yeah.
the talk of the transition from Intel has been around for a while, and now that it's finally here, like they said, the transition is going to take 2 years. And they're not even shipping the first one until the end of this calendar year. So we're looking into probably what if we started it when they ship the first one, that's the end of 2020. So we're looking end of 2022, beginning of 2023 before the transition's complete, and they're all of the Macs they produce are on their own chips. But I'm glad it started because now we can start to see how the transition is going to go. Right? They were smart and had Adobe and Microsoft start working on this early, right? Because that's
Hmm.
people are use Microsoft Office, and the creative types that they want to keep on the Mac usually work with Adobe products.
Right.
So I think they did it smartly. I thought, I mean, if we get the power and the battery life that they were alluding to from this, it's really going to make the Macs attractive to a lot of people. Like if my Mac Pro that I don't have but want goes from 10-hour battery life to 18-hour battery life because of this, or 15-hour battery life, like that's a huge swing, right?
Right.
And that's like more power, better. But and again, it's Apple controlling the full stack. So I'm excited that they finally pulled the trigger, or that they were able to finally. They've gotten to the point. It's not like they've just been waiting because they want to, well, let's let them talk about it more. Like they obviously waited till they had everything in place. Like they've got Rosetta 2 and Universal 2 to help people either get their current native Mac apps up and ready to run on their new Silicon, or Rosetta, which will run old apps on the new system. So I'm hoping that the transition goes somewhat smoothly, but this is a process, right? They even said 2 years. If Apple's saying 2 years for the transition to be complete, then we know it's not going to be fast, right? Because they're not gonna lie about it. Oh, it'll be done in a month. Like if they're setting the bar at 2 years for them to get all of their stuff production wise ready to go, then that gives developers time, you know?
Intel transition took, I think, a year and a half or so. So, which is still pretty quick, when you
Well,
think about
yeah,
everything that
considering
needs to be changed.
well, and how much they produce.
Yeah.
So updating all of the production lines, and developing enough of the chips, and all of that. So I, I like that they gave the timeline, and I like that that buys developers time. There's not this
Right.
pressure to have it done tomorrow, because even that 2 year timeline, that's just Apple saying that's how long it's going to take us to get all of our machines on this chip. That means developers have even more time, because Apple still has to support all of the Intel machines they've sold. So, we're looking at 3 to 5 years before developers probably even need to really worry about a decent chunk of the Mac user base being on those machines. And we're more
Yeah.
looking at probably 5 to 10 years for that to become a majority of Mac users. So we're at the beginning of a really, really, really long curve here, and it will be interesting to see how this plays out. But I'm glad that we're finally at the beginning.
So there's a couple of things that I'm really excited about with this. The first thing is that with Apple controlling the silicon here, just think of what they can do. When we've looked at the iPhone, the iPad, I mean, they have a complete control over how those platforms go as far as updates and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They have been beholden to Intel for so long now. And if Intel has they have issues getting a new chip out, then we've seen that happen before where like their mobile chips have lagged behind for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they can't keep up with the demand that Apple wants to put on them because they want to offer these features, this gives them the ability to say, you know what, we want to do this thing, and instead of going to Intel and saying, hey, we want to do this thing, can you make this happen? They can just call the chip team and say, hey, we want to do this thing, can you make this happen? And they're like, we're on it, let's do it. And it's so much easier than trying to steer a ship like Intel to make some of this stuff happen. So I'm excited about that. I'm also super excited about the fact that iPhone and iPad apps are going to be able to run on this platform.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Tell me how you feel about that.
I'm excited about it because, quite honestly, I have wanted Marco to put a Overcast app on or on the Mac for a long time. Now I can have it without him having to do anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's probably the one that jumped out at me right away.
Right.
You know,
So I guess
is just being
that
able to use Overcast.
your example there, one, makes a ton of sense, and two, answers a question that I actually wrote down in my notes. Why should
Yeah.
iOS actually no, okay, hold on, sorry. The question was, why should iOS devs even care about Catalyst or native Mac apps if their current app will work right away? the current iPhone or iPad app. And in Marco's case, I think it's to his advantage, right? He doesn't have to care about making it because it's going to work. And so I guess I wonder what Apple's thinking is in doing this. If we made this push for Swift UI, we made this push for Mac Catalyst, and now we're moving to ARM, and we're saying use Universal 2, and then you can have a native Mac app running in a few days based off of your current Mac code. And they're trying to do all this stuff to get people to make apps for the Mac. And now they're like, oh, but also your iOS and iPad OS apps will work fine. Then why would I even bother?
So here's my thought, and someone could disagree with this and whatever, but this would be my thought as a developer. If I just simply want my app to work, then I don't have to do anything about it. And quite honestly, Marco's talked about a great deal about Overcast and moving Overcast to the Mac, and he's like, I just don't have the user base right now to do that. So, you know what? All I need to do is have audio that will play on my Mac. And that's all I want. Something that's gonna, rather than having to go to Apple Podcasts to listen to. I mean, right now I've got some stuff in Apple Podcasts that is just video formats that I will listen to or watch on my Mac. And those are very specific podcasts. And Overcast has all of the audio podcasts. So like everything is in Overcast. But occasionally I'll go to the Overcast website and listen to podcasts on the website, which is not a great experience. So having the ability to open up Overcast on my Mac to just listen to audio is perfect. Now, Catalyst. Catalyst gives let's use Marco as an example. If he did have a lot of people that were using the app on the Mac, now he can go in and make it a better Mac experience. So you have that third column that he can add in there, and make it so it's a better experience. So it's not just a little music player or a little podcast player. Now, on the flip side, let's say he's like, you know what? I got to get rid of this code. I'm going to go in, and he would never do this, but I'm going to go grab Swift UI and I'm going to redesign this whole app in Swift UI and make a better, more cogent experience. And I want to start fresh with this. Now you have Swift UI to start fresh, be able to make a universal app that works on all platforms, and you've got one code base for the whole thing. That's my defense. Now tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I actually think that makes a ton of sense, Mitch.
All right, great. I was right this time. Can we mark that on the calendar?
Oh, we sure can. Mitch was right. Hashtag
I was right.
We can get it. We can get it on
All
that
right.
one. But no, yeah, I hadn't considered that.
I got
before.
lucky on that one.
No, I hadn't considered that. So, yeah, makes sense to me. Makes sense.
Yep. And if anybody's listening, I don't know Marco. I really respect what he does. And if you guys use Overcast and you can give him money, he deserves your money for what he does. That's a great app, and it's man, he does good work. So
yeah, I love Overcast. It has saved me so much time with the smart speed.
Smart speed, oh my goodness. I that's why one reason why I don't like listening to the podcasts on the web is because he can't do smart speed on the website. So you have to listen at regular speed, and it's just like it's terrible.
So I'm looking at my settings in Overcast right now. Smart speed has saved you an extra 112 hours beyond speed adjustments alone. Overcast has literally given me days of my life back. What other app can do that?
How many hours?
112.
All right, I'm at 226.
Yeah.
Haha.
Wow. No,
I may have been using it longer. I don't know. Whatever.
I think you listen to more podcasts than I do.
It could be, and it's not a competition. So.
But you did win, so congratulations.
But I did win. Yeah. All right. Well, we have one question remaining for the episode. Are we going to install the betas?
Yes and no. I will not install the macOS beta for the same reasons that you listed earlier.
Yep, and I'm right on board with that. Unless I have a second machine here that suddenly shows up that'll run this, I'm not installing I'm not installing the betas for macOS.
I do have two iPads, so one of them will be running the iPad OS 14 update. And I will eventually run the phone beta, but I will probably wait until the second or third beta release before I put my phone on it.
So the public beta should be out in July. And what I've done in the past is I have installed the beta onto my iPad Pro. I've got a 9.7 inch iPad Pro, the first one that they came out with. And that was my test case to see. That's not a mission critical device for me. It's not even one that I use every day. And I did at one point, but I just don't do that anymore. So I'll install it on that iPad and see how it's running. I have heard from a lot of developers that are running the iOS beta that it is rock solid. Like they're not having any issues that they were having this time last year with iOS 13. So that gives me a lot of hope, and it actually gives me some confidence that if I install the iOS 14 beta on my iPhone, then I'm probably not going to hate myself for doing it. But I did hear recently that it did brick somebody's iPad. So take that for what it's worth. Those of us who have DFU'd in the past know that it's not a fun process, but if you do have an issue, you can DFU it and start over, but you're not out a device. But yeah, so I think betas. I'll probably follow the same plan. iPad first. Make sure that it feels pretty solid. Then probably we'll put it on my iPhone, and it may be day and date that it's available. We'll see. So, but I'm excited to try this out and see how it works.
Yeah, and then we have the long march to the actual release in September,
Hmm.
and then see what gets taken advantage of the most quickly by our favorite third party apps. So it's an exciting time of year, Mitch.
It is super exciting. I love. I think I almost like the. Well, I do like the software updates more than hardware updates because it doesn't cost me anything.
That's a good point.
This will cost me something eventually, but I had one other question for you that I didn't put in the show notes. Actually, it is in the show notes. We talked about that iMac a couple weeks ago when we talked.
Mm-hmm.
What we still were really excited about getting an iMac, right? Especially if it's the one that was rumored.
Mm-hmm.
What if it's on Apple Silicon?
I mean, it will be. I'm assuming that's the one that's getting released at the end of the year.
I think there's a good chance of that. But I think that the Apple Silicon would probably be better on an iPad or on a MacBook. And I think the rumor is a 13-inch MacBook Pro and possibly the iMac would be released before the end of the year. That's I've heard that bantered about a bit. But do you think you'd still get it, or would you get one of the old Intel ones for now if you had to buy it by the end of the year?
If I had to buy it by the end of the year,
Yeah, if that was your choice and you had to get one or the other.
and is the money coming out of my bank account or somebody else's?
Let's say the cost is the same.
Well, if the cost is the same, then I'll get the Apple chip.
I think I agree with you. The only thing I'm worried about with buying Apple Silicon at this point is I do have a couple of apps that I'm worried would run properly. I use Adobe Audition really heavily for editing audio.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the one that I'd be concerned the most about. But if Rosetta 2 is as capable as they're saying it is, I don't think I'll have any problems with that at all. So
Yeah, I mean, I
I
wouldn't.
think I agree with you.
My my pro level stuff, I use Lightroom for my photo editing, but I use Logic for audio and Final Cut for video. So
Hmm.
that those are both Apple products. So I would be good. Like my other podcast that I do, I run that in Logic, so I wouldn't miss a step.
Yeah, and I have Logic, so if I had to switch over to Logic until Adobe got their stuff straight, I could be fine doing it in Logic. But I've done podcasts in Logic before, But to me, like I grew up in audio editing with Adobe Audition. So for me, that's my app. That's what I use for doing that. So
What about you? You were forced to buy one, and the price was
oh, the only thing that would worry me right now is IO, making sure that we have enough ports,
an
and
iMac with no
because that
ports.
like honestly, if they gave me an iMac that had 4 USB-C ports, I would have to sit back and think about that purchase.
Mhm.
Um,
That's what's on the Mac Mini: 4 USB-Cs and 2 USB-As, and
oh
in
no, if,
in
if
the.
it's got the USB-A ports, that's fine. An HDMI port, that's great.
Mhm.
You know, a headphone jack, just because I would like it for backup. I don't necessarily need it, but it'd be nice to have it for backup. Well, if you're recording a podcast and something's not working right, that you can run uh, the an aux channel into the back of the device instead of having to go through USB. That hasn't been a problem up to this point, so I'm not going to fret about it too much. But yeah, if all it has on it is USB-C ports, I've got to run everything on dongles. That's to me that's not a good experience. But otherwise, as long as it's got a couple of USB-A ports, I think I'm going to be okay with that. So I say Apple Silicon.
All right, but I'm not buying anything, so because I'm not forced to.
Well, my wife and I have been talking a lot lately with more of the stuff that I've been doing now with audio editing, and I've been doing some video editing for the church, just a little bit, not a lot, and hopefully being able to do more of that stuff in the future. It makes sense for me. My laptop's got 256 gigs on it, which is not enough for a laptop. Good grief! How many times I've got to open up Daisy Disk and figure out what I'm going to delete today.
Well, especially if you're doing video stuff too.
Oh, good grief. One project in Final Cut starts at 30 gigs. You
Mhm.
know, it crushes me, and I think that's all I got available right now on the machine. So getting something that's got at least a terabyte in it is, I've got to go that route. So, but a 24-inch Apple Silicon iMac would be the sweet spot. Now I'll just see how much it would cost.
All your money.
All my money. They're going to take all of it. So at least I can get no interest financing on the Apple Card. So get 3% back. I can
Yeah,
justify
there you go.
it. All right. Well, I think that's about all we got this week, man. We made it through a second episode.
Indeed, it
Yeah.
was a fun chat.
You know what? I was looking more forward to this one than I was the last one. So because we had so much to talk about. Now we've got 2 weeks to figure out what we're going to talk about next.
All right, pressure's on.
All right. Well, if you've got questions or feedback out there that you'd like to ask, or perhaps you want to tell us what we got wrong, hit us up on Twitter. I'm at Mitch Craig, MITCHCRAIG, and at Cam Brennan, CAMBRENNAN. And you can slow that down to half speed if you need a little bit more time to write those down. Do you listen to your podcast in faster than 1x?
No, but I have smart speed turned on, so
Yeah, that's where I do it. Yeah. Anyway, hit us up on Twitter. Let us know if you have any questions or comments for us, and we'll see you back here in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Cam.
yeah, man, it was good. Talk to you later.